Good evening and welcome back. We've been gone, but we have returned. Military Brat University. Tonight we've got a very special guest, United States Army retired Captain Ernest Underwood. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure having you. So, I just started out with the end. What I want to do now is rewind and talk about some of the steps that led to you having the prestigious career that you did in the Army. One thing that is really cool to me is the route that you took into leadership within the Army, which is slightly different from roughly 90+% of the young men and women that do. So to go all the way back to the beginning, understand that Louisville, Kentucky is your home, born and raised.
Born and raised is my home. Love it.
Okay.
Talk about it any chance I get.
Okay. It's a great town. It's now my adopted home. So just tell the people, what part of town you're from and, where you went to high school and so forth.
Okay. So just a quick back brief on everything. So born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, as you mentioned earlier. So when I went through high school, I grew up in the West End of Louisville. It's a little rough.
Okay.
Some of the other areas that, in Louisville. I went to Shawnee High School, and the thing is, it's been a really good opportunity. But you have to make it your opportunity at the same time. So you have to make the best of whatever cards that you're dealt at the end of the day.
Right.
So that's where I went to school, and that's where I grew up at in Louisville.
Okay. Interesting thing I found out about Shawnee High School. Shawnee High School has a aviation program, right?
They do.
Which is not only unique in the city or the state, is unique in the country.
That's true.
Yeah, not a lot of high schools or colleges, even for that matter, have an aviation program.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a heck of a feather in their cap.
I don't want to shoot the school in the foot, anything like that. But, they did have an aviation program, but it was just something just dealing with our neighborhood. It was just something that wasn't really taken advantage of. And every school is all about resources. We didn't have a lot of resources in order to fund those programs. So
right.
To me, I felt like it could have been done a little bit better, but that's maybe a different topic for a different day. But they do have a lot of potential at Shawnee High School, though.
Okay. Yeah, good stuff. Who's the most famous student to come out of Shawnee High School?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. So since I don't really know the answer to that, I'm going to say myself because I'm
Okay. So I guess, actually, you know what? Muhammad Ali went to Central, didn't he?
I think he did.
Yeah, he went to Central.
That would have been my answer.
Okay, yeah, okay. So now at some point during like high school age years, didn't you make your way, in fact, out near the area where you now reside?
That is true. So I left a little early. So at the beginning of my junior year, I left Louisville, Kentucky, and I transitioned over to Denver, Colorado. And then that's where I finished up my high school years and got my diploma. And that's where I ultimately joined the military.
Okay. And so did you join the military pretty much right out of high school?
Right out of high school. Didn't take a break.
Okay. So where'd you start out way back then?
Oh, wow. So we're talking about a rank. I started out as a private.
Okay.
But it's really an E1. So, I had no pull, no rank. I was just like, you know what? We're going to tell you what to do. You do it.
Right.
And that's where I started at. I started at the bottom.
Okay. And where was basic training held back then?
So basic training for me was going to be at Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Okay.
In the summer, it was pretty muggy.
Yeah. It's pretty tough down there. So I know once upon a time, maybe before a certain year, anybody that went in the Army ended up at Fort Dix for their basic.
Right. So, there's going to be a lot of changes throughout, and as it expands and everything like that. Because the military, and as a whole, they're going to, adjust their forces as needed, just based
Mhm.
on, you know, what's actually going on at that time. So at one point that might have been true. And then now it's kind of like, you know, they send you to so many different areas, so many different forts in order to conduct basic training, and then followed by AIT after that, which is
Okay.
individual training.
Now, where was your AIT?
So my AIT was in Fort Eustis, Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what career path were you taking at that point?
So at that point, I was aviation. I was part of the Apache unit.
Okay.
Apaches, what they are, they're attack helicopters. And, you know, essentially at the end of the day, anybody at any unit, whatever the case is, if they need support, then that's where we come in. We bring in the big guns.
Okay. Okay. Now, were you like a helicopter mechanic, or were you part of the force that was literally on the chopper that flew out to, you know, wherever they were called?
Now, and that, there's two answers. So yeah, so I was a mechanic. So I was
Okay.
a mechanic. I did that for a number of years, close to 10 years, my first 10 years in the military. Now, the thing is you know, I was also part of a DART team. And then DART is also an acronym, because I'm going to tell you, the military loves the acronyms.
Yes.
DART is DART, is Down Aircraft Recovery Team. So I was, you know, after I made a little bit of rank, you know, I was the DART team leader. So what we would do is, you know, different missions, we would fly in that Black Hawk behind the Apaches or whatever the case is. And then on some cases, you know, we would respond to a downed aircraft. And I've done that a few times. Even if we're not following them, we're in close proximity. So wherever the aircraft goes down at, it was my responsibility to take my team and the rest of my assets to whatever location and get that thing back up and running as soon as possible.
Okay, so number one, thank you for sharing that with us, because the picture that painted for me, and for most of us, when we think of a mechanic, we might think of somebody that is working at home, right? Or maybe they have a shop. Either case, they are in the most peaceful of situations, right? There's no pressure other than the time it takes to get the job done.
Wow.
But in your case, the stakes are highest.
They are high. And now I will tell you, from my perspective, there's a lot of pressure, because the thing is like, for one, there's a lot of misconception about, like, as far as like what you were saying is like, you know, we are at home, or, you know, anything like that. Now, we are very involved in the mission. We are very involved in missions. And like I said, anything that goes wrong, because these pilots that fly these aircraft, they don't know as much as we do, or their knowledge is just a little bit different than the knowledge that we possess.
Mm-hmm.
So to maintaining and stuff like that, theory operation, that's where we come in at. Now, you know, can you repeat that second question that you had? I know you had.
Sure. So, yeah, so, you know, what I'm talking about is the level of urgency, I guess, you know, that you guys were facing in getting these choppers back up and moving. The stakes were pretty high.
They were pretty high. And I'm gonna tell you one thing that really kind of stressed me out a little bit is like, you know, putting everything back together. You know, we had people's lives in our hands. And the thing is I've seen mishaps before, you know, and stuff. And sometimes it might be, you know, a mechanical error, or sometimes it might be a pilot error, weather, whatever the case is. So those are the things that me personally, that I want to prevent as much as possible. And then as I continue to make it up through the ranks, you know, I held a different position dealing with the Apaches, you know, as a TI, which is a technical inspector. And what that means is that anybody who works on this aircraft, I give that final stamp of approval before that aircraft is approved to fly. Now, you put that into perspective of you flying, you know, a commercial airline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you got your you know, your trust and faith and everything like that, and everything that was done prior to you boarding that aircraft, that everything was done right. And then that's where I came in at, to tell these pilots, like, everything was done right. If something happens, then then I'm through. I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
my career
Yeah.
is over. So that was in that aspect and that perspective. That's, you know, for me, that was a lot of pressure.
Yeah. I don't want to use the word fun because that's the furthest thing from it. But I'd have to say, you know, as you look back on it, at least, you know, and everything worked out, you know, in the way that you'd hoped, you know, it was a neat thing to be a part of.
Absolutely. And, you know, and the thing is, you know, looking back and, you know, after, you know, spending 22 years in the military and having so many different, and meeting so many different people and stuff like that, you know, one thing that I will miss the most, and I gave this in my retirement speech, is the people. The
Mm-hmm.
camaraderie is like no other. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're talking about, you know, your brothers and sisters that truly have your back, you know, and you have people that look out for you and you return the favor and you look out for them too. And I'm telling you, that's a brotherhood and a sisterhood that I don't think that would be matched anywhere else. So that's
Yeah.
one thing that I will miss the most.
Yeah. 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 Shared experiences, you
Absolutely.
know, yeah. Shared experiences. Everybody from all walks of life have come together to varying degrees for the same reason,
Absolutely.
you know,
Right.
or to achieve the same goal.
Right. We
And
all put our hand and you know, to the same oath
right.
and promise to uphold that oath, you know, to the best of our abilities. And having that commonality with you know, those brothers and sisters, you know, it's kind of like one thing that brings us together though, because at the end of the day, we make up less than 1% of the population. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a special thing.
Yeah. So from Fort Jackson to Fort Eustis. From Fort Eustis, where'd you go? Because now you're about to begin, right? So you did the basic training, then you broke out into your group for the AIT, which can be as long as 2 to 3 times your basic training length, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So
Okay.
it depends on your MOS, which is your military occupational specialty. And at the end of the day, it's your job.
Right.
It's the job that you signed up to do, whether it's going to be infantry, an MP, a doctor, dentist, aviation, whatever you want to do. You go to AIT, Advanced Individual Training, in order to learn how to do your job. And like you said, and that's true. So it can last, based on what you pick, 2 to 3 times longer than basic training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Basic training is what, 8 weeks?
9 weeks.
9 weeks. Okay. Okay. So after Fort Eustis, where to?
So I went to Fort Hood, Texas.
Okay. Okay.
First unit that I went to. It was a very interesting unit. You know, it was, you know, it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. You know, I was very, you know, in the lack of better terms, kind of ignorant as far as like how a regular unit in the military function, how NCOs function outside of drill sergeants. I wasn't
Right.
used to that. So yeah, it was interesting in that aspect. So, you know, NCOs were actually approachable, you know, and you know, people they take you under their wing and try to show you the ropes. So it was pretty cool.
Now, I know once upon a time it was the largest Army post in the country.
Right.
And is it still one of the largest, or if not the largest?
It is. And if I have my facts straight, I want to say that Fort Bragg in North Carolina is right behind Fort Hood.
Okay. Because Fort Hood has what, like, has a couple divisions, right?
They do. So they
Okay.
have a few divisions. And then whenever we're talking about landmass, when we have, you know, opportunities to train, Fort Hood has a lot.
Okay. So I tell you what, I want to go into that a little bit further. But I'm actually about to delve into my favorite part of what I've discovered about your career. And we'll be right back with more Military Brat University. Welcome back to Military Brat University. We are spending some time with United States Army retired Captain Ernest Underwood. And in the first segment, he was polite enough to take us all the way back to day one. We made it up through his high school years, through basic training, through AIT, and we've just arrived at his first duty station, the largest military post, excuse me, the largest Army post in the country, Fort Hood, Texas. So you found out that the NCOs didn't just yell at you at every turn.
That is true.
Okay. So how many years did you spend at Fort Hood when you first got there?
Oh wow! So that was pretty short lived, and the way that they sent someone to another duty station back then was something called a pursegram. So I lived in the barracks, and I would go, and I had a mailbox key. I would go and check my mail every day. So I checked my mail, and I had like it looked like a postcard or something like that, almost like a postcard, but without the picture. Now on the postcard, it had not Fort, but it had Korea. That I was going to Korea.
Okay.
I was so upset.
Right.
I really was. Now I didn't understand it back then because, like I said, I was a private. I took to work and I showed it to my NCOs, and they're like, "Look, you have orders. You coming down on orders. You going to Korea." So to answer your question, I want to say that I was at Fort Hood for almost 2 years, but actually, yeah, it was about a year and a half before I had a pursegram to go to Korea.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so you can't argue with a piece of mail, right? It's there. Here's where you're going, and that's it.
That's it.
Okay. So just 1 year. Now, when you go to Korea, isn't it typically 1 year at a time?
Right. Yeah. So what we did when we went to Korea, we actually formed a unit. So instead of sending everybody back to the States from Korea, the States meaning the United States, all at once, because we got to have a backfill, right? So we had individuals that did a 10-month tour, 12-month tour, and a 14-month tour. And I was one of the ones that did a 12-month tour. But typically, to answer your question, yes, it is a 1-year tour, and then you would be reassigned somewhere else.
Okay. So as a military brat, all I knew about Korea were the jogging suits. That the soldiers came back with foot lockers full of the jogging suits.
Look, you can get anything. Like as far as apparel, you can get anything in Korea, right? They will make it for you. Not saying that it's going to be the best.
Right.
I'm going to tell you, I bought a shirt. I was like, wow, this T-shirt is really nice, right? The first time that I washed this shirt, it fit me like like a half shirt. My stomach was hanging out,
Right.
But I will tell you, with Korea, they have some really good food. Really good food out there in Korea, and that's one thing that I do miss about Korea.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I waited long enough. Okay. So what most people know or may not know is that there are two sections of soldiers, and forgive me for the using the wrong terms, but there are two areas of soldiers. They're what are called NCOs. That stands for non-commissioned officers.
Right.
And then you have your officers.
Right.
Now, in terms of officers, I know typically they either go to a service academy. So in Army's case, go to West Point, and you'll come out of West Point and get commissioned as a second lieutenant. Right. Or you've gone to a 4-year college, and during your stay at that 4-year college, you participated in ROTC 4 years. And if you do so satisfactorily, then you can get commissioned coming out of ROTC.
Correct.
But there's another way. And from my understanding and research, the other way was actually the way it used to happen more often than not. And that is, you'll come in and maybe you're a non-commissioned officer for a period of time, and through your performance and service, in the level of service that you're providing, you can become an officer candidate and go to officer candidate school, more commonly known as OCS, and you can take that route. And from my understanding, that is the smallest of the three slices, if you will, of the path to becoming an officer. So I know that you went to OCS. Is that right?
Actually, ROTC. I'm a ROTC.
ROTC. Okay. So but it wasn't the coming out of high school into college ROTC route.
Correct.
Okay.
And then, I mean, if you want me to, I can kind of elaborate on it a little bit.
Absolutely.
So the thing is, with OCS, yes, Officer Candidate School, for what that's the one that I have the least amount of information on because I didn't touch on it at all.
Okay.
From what I understand with OCS, it's kind of like you have to have a degree already. So a lot of people that already have that 4-year degree, close to having that 4-year degree, they go OCS.
Okay.
For the route that I took, ROTC for ROTC, like I said, again, the military loves to, use acronyms and stuff like that, right?
Right.
So you have the 4-year option. You actually have 3 different options: 4, 3, and 2-year option.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I took advantage of the 2-year option. All right, so it's one of the best deals out there for anybody in the military to take advantage of. I mean, because here I am, an E7, going full-time student, going to ROTC, active duty option, 2 years. All right, so that means that I have to have a degree within that 2-year time period, and I'm still considered active duty. Now, my place of duty at that point is at the college. We get evaluated and everything like that. But then when you're in ROTC, one cool thing about it is you're going to compete for your job. You're going to compete for active duty, reserve, National Guard, and you're going to compete for location. Because now, you're going to have like your OML, which is another acronym for the military, which is the Order of Merit List. And then you're going to have like, okay, this is where I'm going to rank everything. And this is what I want to do as far as like a job. But you're going to compete against every senior. Because once you're a senior, right, you're in your 4th year, when you graduate, you're going somewhere. You're going to go active duty Army, Reserve, or National Guard. But then we're going to tell you whatever your job is at the same time. And the way that the military does it, from the best of my knowledge, right, is your senior year, you're going to compete against every senior in ROTC across the entire country. Now, the thing is like, based on where you rank amongst every senior, it's going to be like, it's going to be based on what job you get, right? So if you're at the top, more than likely, you're going to get your top 3, more than likely. And then since I was the active duty option, I only did the 2-year active duty option, meaning that I never really had a break in service. I was able to stay active duty. I didn't have to compete. Like everybody else who went through ROTC for reserve active duty spots. So anyway, to kind of shorten it up a little bit, you're competing against everyone in the nation as far as, for your job, for your location, and for your active duty National Guard and Reserve status. The hardest part is if you're in the middle of that group. You have your top, and then you have your bottom. And then the people in the middle, those are the ones with a lot of uncertainty, because now they have to figure out, like, okay, where are we going to place these people? These soldiers coming up and graduating and stuff. So yeah, that was pretty fun. That was one of the funnest processes, but stressful at the same time.
Right.
Trying to figure out, like, okay, what do I have? It's like a military lottery.
Yeah, but I like probably a lot of people watching just learn something, because the fact that it's a meritocracy, that's even playing ground to me. Yeah.
And and didn't mean to cut you off, but the thing is, like, the military likes to be well versed, so they don't like to be extremely strong in one area or in one job, and extremely lacking in a different area. Because at the end of the day, every MOS or every a job plays a part, in order to complete the whole. Because you might have a cook, on the outside that they may not, get a lot of respect or supply, that might be looked down on, or whatever the case is. I'm just speaking from the military aspect, but the thing is, missions cannot be completed without supply. We have to have our resources in order to conduct our missions successfully, right? So everybody plays a part, in the military, but a lot of different, branches of the military, of the Army, they get a lot more praise than others. But everybody plays a part. If you do your job right, And I say that just to lead to this really quick is, like I said, they rank every cadet, going through ROTC, that's a senior at that time, and that's how they place everybody, right? And then based on my knowledge, they take, a lot of the top people and they place them to, those jobs that they really want. But then they also take some of the bottom people and place the same ones in the jobs that they asked for, because they can't leave everybody at the bottom out and be like, okay, we're going to push you guys to this MOS, and I hope you do well.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to put some of the people that excel on paper, in those areas. They're going to put some of the people that didn't do so well in some of the top areas too. So, and that just gives that balance across the board, in the military. And then last thing that I want to touch on really quick is, there's kind of like a hierarchy a little bit that's not really talked about, but when it comes to picking your jobs in the military, West Point, a lot of times they're gonna get the top of the, they're gonna get their picks in, and then after that, it's gonna be your ROTC, your ROTC guys, and girls, and then after that, it's gonna be the OCS, graduates. So, and that's kind of how they rank it, but yeah, I think it's a system that works.
Okay, so when we come back, I want to get a little bit more into that, and if you can help me in the audience too, remember the word balance, and we'll be right back with more Military Brat University after these messages. And we're back. You are watching Military Brat University with today's special guest, retired U.S. Army Captain Ernest Underwood. In our first segment, we talked about the beginning, which was the school days, if you will, up through him joining the Army and basic training, AIT, first duty station, first overseas station, and about halfway through, he decided, in ultimately the best leadership school in the world, to jump into leadership. And so when you were talking about the process, the ROTC process, and the stack ranking that happens, and the fact that some of the better students might get their choices, and some of the students maybe at the bottom end of the scale would still get some of the higher choices, and you talked about the balance that the Army exhibits with that practice. Well, the reason for me, I was so excited about your path to becoming an officer is because you had first been an NCO, right? So that's why the word balance jumped out at me. And so I don't want to step on any toes here, but a lot of times if you have somebody straight out of college or even out of a service academy, you're a 22-year-old officer that, might outrank, I don't know, a 12, 13, 14-year sergeant who might not have your rank, but you don't have his experience. And in your case, you were the perfect blend of the officer with the rank coupled with the soldier that had the experience.
Right. Yeah. So the biggest thing about that is, like I said, I've made it to the rank of E7 before I made that transition over to officer, and I felt like, to me, one way that it really helped me out was that I was able to experience those. I had those real life leadership experiences. I've led soldiers. I was a platoon sergeant. I was a squad leader. I deployed multiple times before I even commissioned. So I was in a combat, stressful environments and everything like that. So when it came to me going through ROTC and actually being evaluated and just, doing these different activities, leading up to being ranked amongst your peers across the country, it didn't really affect me, not much, because I felt like I've been tested on multiple levels. Now, with that being said, once I commissioned, I felt like that I was able to, really effectively communicate with soldiers and NCOs, to the point where I actually motivated, I had no issues motivating, these individuals, these soldiers, and it just led to you know, a pretty good ride, in comparison to some of the other things that I've seen at the same time.
So you mentioned deployments. Did you have any post-commission deployments?
So I did. So I actually had one, and it was to Iraq. And to be honest, it was kind of at the tail end of Iraq. So it was so I went out in 2012 to Iraq, and we were actually starting to pull out at that time. But before, I've done 2 other Iraqs, and I went through the initial invasion back in 2003, and then I went to Afghanistan in 2008, 2009. So I had 1 deployment, post commission.
And then 3 pre-commission.
Yes.
Okay. Other than the time, because it was easy for you to compare and contrast because you went to the same place. Other than the time, the end versus the beginning, what were the differences being over there as an officer versus as an NCO?
Job. So
Okay.
when I was as an officer, I was mainly in a headquarters, just pretty much being a battle captain, producing orders and stuff like that in order to, push those out to, the platoons and the squads and stuff like that for them to go out and execute. Being a battle captain means that, just tracking all personnel, and there's just a lot more that goes into that. There's just a lot of tracking, a lot of building on computers, dealing with maps and everything like that. So there's a lot that goes into being a battle captain.
Okay. So you were a battle captain, but early on you had a battle captain. Yeah, that's pretty neat.
That's true.
Pretty neat.
That's true.
So start off as a 2nd lieutenant. And then we know that the step beyond that is to go from 2nd lieutenant to 1st lieutenant.
Correct.
And how long does that typically take?
Wow. So it's usually maybe a year and a half or so. So usually from 2nd lieutenant to 1st lieutenant, and 1st lieutenant to captain are going to be, the quickest ranks that you're actually going to achieve on the officer side of the house.
Okay.
A lot of times the longest rank that you will hold is going to be as a captain, and then after that you're going to progress forward from there. But then after that, there's a lot of leadership positions, whether you're a company commander, and a lot more schooling that you have to do. So we're talking about continuing education for your master's degree, maybe doctorate, war college. So there's a lot that goes into it as far as you shooting up through the ranks.
Okay. All right. And do you have any plan? I mean, I know. Yeah, so you're less than 90 days into official retirement now.
That is true.
Okay. And you might still just be catching your breath. But being a military leader means that, you're just a planner innately now, right? Even if you weren't before. And so what are your plans going forward, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yeah, no, not at all. So post-retirement, and I think you hit it right on the head. I don't think that I really caught my breath yet. I retired on 1 June. June 1st. The military always has this day month for the military. So June 1st is when I retired. So today's the 19th. It's been maybe almost 50 days. It hasn't really kicked in yet, as odd and as weird as that might sound, because I feel like I still need to be doing something. But my plans going forward for right now is, I just want to take a little time off and spend it with family. I have 5 kids and I have a 2-year-old. So there's a lot that I did miss, growing up with the other ones, with the other kids, and it's just something that, a different experience that I want to experience at the end of the day.
Okay. Okay. So business plans, work plans, still don't know yet?
I'm still in there now.
Okay.
That's, to be honest, and that's one really good thing about sticking it out and hanging in there until retirement. I think it just gives us that little bit of cushion, of buffer.
Mm-hmm.
It just gives us that opportunity to really figure it out. Like, what do you want to do next?
Right.
Constantly ask myself that, and I've talked about that all the time too. So,
Yeah.
to be honest, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do, when I grow up.
Right, there you go. So let me ask you this, just because I do know a little military speak. How much terminal leave did you have?
Okay. So I had almost 90 days.
Okay.
I had almost 90 days. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of backlash for this, but I cashed in 60 days of leave before I retired.
Okay.
So, I mean, you have a lot of leadership. You're going to have people on both sides of the fence. But I actually cashed in some leave days before I retired.
Okay. That's a smart play. 90 days is a long time.
Right.
That's a long time. So, but you ended up with 30 days.
I ended up with 30 days.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. I'm a matter of fact, I'm gonna have to make a call to my mom and find out just how much time my dad I had. I think I think it was under 30 days. So, yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're in Colorado. You're back in Colorado, right? So you've come full circle, if you will.
Circle.
The place that you graduated from high school is where you now reside. Are you near Denver?
I'm not far from Denver. It's maybe 30 minutes away.
Okay. Okay.
Like you mentioned before, it's pretty interesting because, I started my military career in Colorado, and I also ended my military career and retired in the same state of Colorado.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Did you plan that?
I would like to say that I did, but it's hard to plan that out like that.
Right. Yeah.
It just so happened to work out that way, and I'm telling you, Colorado is a really nice state to retire in.
Yeah, I've only been through. I've never been to.
You need to come
But yeah, I've heard a lot of good stuff about it. Yeah.
Come visit. We got a spot for you.
Okay. All right. All right. I'm gonna hold you to that.
All right.
Okay. So in closing, is there anything that you'd like to share with the people? I know I've delved into, both your personal and professional life, and you've been really gracious in sharing with us. And, I guess it's just part and parcel to the position that you held, that you broke everything down. I think I kind of discovered that my knack for coming up with acronyms is probably a byproduct of growing up in a military household.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I know a lot of good ones.
So if there's anything that I could kind of pass on a little bit is that I feel like from my personal experience that a lot of people have like their own perceptions of what they think the military is, and they're afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many opportunities available in the military. I'm not campaigning for the military, but just speaking on my personal experience. And just like anything else in life, it's what you make of it. But just take advantage of it. From free education to, there are just so many opportunities to take advantage of in the military.
Okay, so we've covered all bases, right? No pun intended. What I want to talk about, because I happened to find out during my research, is that the journey continues, right? So soon there's going to be another Underwood in the Army. Could you tell us about that, please? Yes.
So fingers crossed. My oldest daughter, she takes a test tomorrow for the ASVAB to join the
Okay.
And at that point, we're going to find out what job she's going to have and everything like that. Once she graduates, of course, we're going to be there for that in order to support her. And hopefully she listens to a lot of the advice that, we have to give her. And, and kind of touching on that a little bit, I know it's called Military Brats. And the biggest thing is like, not only am I in the military, but all of, your spouse and your kids are also in the military at the same time. So everything that I had to deal with, they also have to endure. Every time I'm deployed, more than likely they have to deploy. My daughter, she spent plenty of times, in different locations and relocating, and kids are resilient. And I think it just, that creates a stronger individual at the end of the day, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, without question. So we're going to take another break. And when we come back, I'm going to share a couple of new things that we've got going here at Military Brat University after these messages. And welcome back to Military Brat University. We've spent the last 45 plus minutes with retired U.S. Army Captain Ernest Underwood, and the subject matter has run the gamut. We have literally gone from his day one to his day end within the Army. Now we're transitioning to the next generation, and I know a little bit about that, both first and second hand. My oldest brother followed my dad's path into the Army and retired. Well, by the time I turned 18, I felt like I had done 18 years in the Army. And so I didn't, but I did do ROTC freshman year of undergrad, and knew that if I went in at any point beyond that, there was going to be a postgraduate commitment. And at 18, 19 years old, I didn't understand that little bit of time was nothing. But I did do a rappelling tower, and I did learn how to shoot an azimuth. So that was about it for me, But my brother took it all the way, and he did 20 plus years as an MP. And he's retired now, actually several years retired now, down in Tampa, Florida.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a new journey that you get to watch this time. You get to watch, knowing many parts of the story.
That is true.
Yeah.
It's like, everybody has to walk their own path at the end of the day. And, me being the protective, parent, that I am, it's kind of like, okay, let me guide you along the way. Okay, this is happening. Okay, do you need to create an op order? Send your product to me. Let me look at it. I'm going to, fix it up for you, make it look, but I'm going to, I want to give guidance, but I want her to be allowed to walk her own path at the same time.
Right.
Because like you mentioned before, I'm retired, and she's going to be the new generation that's in the military, making her strides and her marks as she goes along. So to me, I think that's going to be the hardest part for me, is just to sit back and be idle and just listen to, what she's done, whether good or bad. So
right.
I think that's just going to be one of my biggest challenges, though, moving forward.
Yeah. I think those will be some neat conversations.
Absolutely.
I can tell you about a time maybe 5 years ago when my very best friend in the world, who's also retired Army, came to visit, and I sat there in the presence of he and my dad, and there was zero input I could give to the conversation they were having. It was two Army men, and I'm watching my dad treat this guy he knew as a boy like a man now, because they had that thing in common, and so that'll be a very neat thing for you and your daughter to have those kinds of conversations, based on the common ground that you share.
Absolutely. And then kind of like I mentioned before, we're talking about 1% of the population. So you don't get to have these conversations with a lot of people. You know, so whenever you do have that opportunity, it's kind of cool to share that. And I'm gonna tell you one thing that I didn't realize before I joined the military. For one, I was naive about the military, and I didn't know much about it at all, other than what I saw on the big screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw, you know, the veterans and you know, with the hats that were in World War II and Vietnam and Korean War and, you know, stuff like that. But once I became a veteran myself, I looked at them a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
I had a newfound respect for each and every one of those individuals, soldier, airman, Marine, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
New respect. I don't care what job you had. I don't care if you were a cook, but you went through the suck with everyone else.
Right.
You know, so it just gave me a new outlook on it, going through it myself, because
Mm-hmm.
before I didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And oddly enough, I mean, to a lesser extent, from an experience standpoint, but oddly enough, the same kinship exists with military brats. You know, we've been through a lot of the same things, or, you know, our parents might not have been present, you know, at different points in our lives. But for the most noble of reason, they weren't there. Doesn't make it hurt less, but we as a unit understood that, you know. And there's a picture that flashes during the intro to this show. And it's a picture of, it's my kindergarten graduation. Now, my dad was in the field in Germany. You know firsthand, I don't. But what I do know is that he wasn't expected to be there, because there's no way, supposedly, that you can get out of the field. But he did. You know, and that's why it's one of my most cherished pictures, you know, because he was there. You know, he was there. So, yeah, you know, it's nothing like being part of a group.
And that is true. And just based on that was a big deal to get out of the field in order to participate in and you know, any event is really a big deal. And I'm gonna tell you, like, one of the mottos in the military is mission first, people always, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, you know, you in the military, you have to know your job, you know, back and forth. You have to be able to do your part in order to accomplish the mission, because if you can't, then not only will you suffer, but, you know, your wingman or whatever on your left and right, your battle buddy to your left and right might suffer as well. So it's very important for us to do our missions, but a lot of times those military brats really don't understand the severity of it, the importance of it, you know, at the end of the day. But it's important for us. I'm telling you, because I've heard many stories throughout the military. It's important for us to be at our kids' events too. So we make every effort, and I know I speak for a majority of military to be at every function, you know, for our kids and our staff too.
Yeah. The videos that you see from time to time, you know, where a mother or father that's a service member show up at an important event, you know, for their children or a family member, you know, those that get you in the fields every time, you know, especially in your case, having been on the parental side of it. And in my case, having been on the child side of it, you know, but yeah, so those are good ones. You know? Yeah, those are good ones. So there's a segment that we're about to start with this episode. And the segment is called Sound Off, right? And as you know, that's you know, the oldest of cadences, right? But the Sound Off is designed for us to get feedback from the viewing audience. And it could be something as innocuous as, you know, Pepsi versus Coke, right? Or it could have a military brat theme, which might be, are you a C-ration brat or are you an MRE brat? Right? So, you know, and that'll let you know where somebody, the time and space in which they grew up. You know, have you ever owned a P-38? So for the inaugural, if you will, Sound Off, is there a question that you'd like to pose to the viewing audience, military related or not, that they can then chime in down below on?
You know, I would love to know, like when you're talking about a civilian, like their perspective of what they think about the military. So, you know, I've heard a lot, you know, and a lot of it's not true, you know, but the thing is, I would love to know, like, what their perspective of, what do they think about the military? And they don't have to break it down by branch, by Army, you know, Marines, you know, Navy, Air Force, or whatever the case is. But, you know, it's, not everybody is going to be like, okay, we join in the military, we're going to war, everybody's in danger.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's a lot, and that's not what the case is. But, you know, just I just want to be able to educate as many people as possible. At the end of the day, I'm not advocating for everyone to join, but I'm telling you, like, for me personally, and my experience has been, I wouldn't change it. I would do it again.
Okay. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, sound off. Today's question: what are your thoughts on the military? However brief or in depth you want to go, what are your thoughts on the military? And again, as Captain Underwood said, branch notwithstanding, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, National Guard, any of them, when you hear, say, or think military, what comes to mind? Answer down below. We want to hear your thoughts. Okay? And we are going to wrap up. I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent with us. I can't thank you enough for the detail that you provided. I felt like I got to travel through that, your time. I really did, you know, and yeah, what a great story. What a great story. I've got something special for you, and I'll get your information later on so I can get it to you. Okay. And again, thank you, and thank you.
Look, thank you again. Thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me the opportunity on this platform to get the story out. And again, thanks so much.
Okay. And so, as I did as a kid, on Fridays when the revelry got played, the soldiers had to go here, and the rest of us had to go here.
Right.
And then flinch when the cannon went off. So, thank you. That's my salute to you. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching us on Military Brat University. We'll see you next week. Please sound off below. Good night.